You're so right, by the way. Over the past year and a half, people have just really focused on kind of what's been important in their lives. And now more than ever, Will, I think they're zeroing in on, I don't want all the nonsense anymore. I just want what's important and putting all my focus and energy just on those things. So if that's a lesson you get out of intuitive fasting, you guys, then I think Will be very happy with that.
Yeah, totally. And it's all of this stuff, like what I wrote in the book, it's born out of my clinical experience. You know, that's what I'm doing 11 hours a day. It's talking to patients online. So all of this stuff is just when you see patterns of people and what people are going through, this is not just an individual thing. I know there's a mass ocean of people that are struggling with imbalances of all kind. They're struggling with physical imbalances in the form of metabolic syndrome and chronic inflammation, which is an imbalanced immune system. They're struggling with imbalanced microbiome with the form of dysbiosis and things like SIBO and digestive problems and gut health issues. They're struggling with hormonal imbalances, thyroid hormone imbalances. But we're part of nature, right? We're a part of nature. We like to think, or we don't like to remember that, but the reality is we are a part of nature. And, you know, as the saying goes, as above, so below. What's happening in the world on all levels, environmentally, but also geopolitically, and also on people's health. There's sort of a physiological climate change going on in the form of chronic inflammation, but there's also that spiritual, I think, mental, emotional imbalance that's going on. The rampant levels of anxiety and depression and fatigue and people with other emotional disturbances going on. That's part of that collective imbalance. And I think fasting is just a great therapeutic tool in addition to food. Obviously, I talk about food too in the book, but and mindfulness. All of these ways are tools to recalibrate our physiology, but not just recalibrate our physiology, but recalibrate our spirit. And we all have it within us. We just have to pause and allow our body the time to get there.
Hey guys, you know I'm all about healthy nutrition, and I have a brand new product I want to tell you about called Athletic Greens. This is not just a multivitamin. It has 75 essential elements that you want to have in your diet, from probiotics to greens to digestive enzymes to prebiotics. There's so many things that they pack into the Athletic Greens. The main reason why I love them is it puts it all in one place. Like literally you'd have to a la carte buy all of these different supplements, and they do it all in one package. So if you go to athleticgreens.com/Jimmy, and you can get a special discount if you go there, and the discount is you get a free 1-year supply of their vitamin D as well as some of their travel packs. Go check it out, you guys. athleticgreens.com/Jimmy. And guys, I want to give a plug for Will's Instagram page. Please go to DRWILLCOLE over on Instagram. You write some of the most thought-provoking things, and I know, yes, fasting, everybody thinks about food, but fasting from toxic relationships, fasting from what we're on right now on Instagram recording live, fasting from social media, fasting from the things that aren't serving you well in your life provides just as much health benefit as fasting from the food.
Amen. I mean, it's the truth. It's absolutely true. But all of this reckoning that has to happen, like what are foods that are not serving you? What are practices that are not serving you? What are people that are not serving you? And I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean, like what's out of alignment with your goals? Because all of this stuff, and part of the conversation that I'm having in the book is this separation that we like to have between mental health and physical health in the West. Yeah. But mental health is physical health. Our brain is part body, and we have to look at all of this stuff and not just relegate brain health issues, anxiety, depression, or worry, dread, loneliness as like just separate things, because those things will impact your physiology. They will raise inflammation levels up. They will impact your gut microbiome, impact your immune system. But conversely, there's things going on in people's body like chronic inflammation and gut issues and hormonal imbalances that will impact your mental health. Because we know that these things drive things like anxiety and depression. So we have to look at the mental, emotional, spiritual things, the situational things on the outside, but we also have to look at the internal imbalances that are going on too. And when you deal with both sides of that, coin, then people can have true freedom and true peace in their life.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of this internal work over the past 2 years myself. A lot of things about my childhood trauma came out over the past year and a half, and I've kind of come to terms with a lot of those and talking about them very openly, that a lot of the traumas people deal with then lead to them overeating, and then the overeating leads to more physical problems, which then leads to more mental health problems. And you're right, it's kind of this hitting you from both sides, that healing one is not going to heal both. You need to heal both. And so I love that you're talking about this so openly, and I've long been a big fan of Will Cole. So I love that you're really kind of pointing this out very clearly to people and giving them the tools to how they do it. Again, guys, we're talking to Dr. Will Cole. Intuitive Fasting is his brand new book, all about intermittent fasting. And I have to ask you, because I wrote a book about fasting. Dave Asprey has a book about fasting. Fasting's been out there. Like, were you worried that, oh boy, people are going to think like keto? How many keto books do we need? Fasting, how many fasting books do we need? Were you worried about that at all?
Well, I wouldn't say worried, but I was quite aware that I don't think there needed to be another book about intermittent fasting. You and Dr. Fung wrote an amazing book. To me, that summarizes the science, and it's an amazing, accessible, like Bible, if you will, for fasting. So I don't think it needed to be reinvented. I don't think the wheel needed to be reinvented. But what I wanted to bring, and what I felt like I brought to the conversation of fasting, is this mindfulness approach and a functional medicine approach. So I thought that was something that I could bring to the conversation. It's like a different, it's in the first page of the book. It's like we are all different facets of the same diamond, all reflecting light in our own way, but part of that same diamond. And I thought that I could bring a different reflection of light in a different way that has been done already, has already been done. So bringing that mindfulness approach, bringing that functional medicine approach is really what I wanted to do with the book. Because you wrote the book on fasting. I don't need to redo that.
Well, and thank you, by the way. And so, yeah, I think KETOTARIAN opened the door for you to reach a whole new audience that never found the complete guide to fasting, quite frankly. And so the fact that you wanted to reach that audience of people, I see you're up over 200,000 people follow you now on Instagram. Like, you've got quite the following. From the first time you and I talked on Keto Talk many years ago, you've grown a little bit. So it's amazing watching your career and how you're using this platform that you've been given and that you've nurtured and created. Good job, by the way. I'm very proud of you, what you've been able to make of yourself. But this new book, I think, is probably the best thing you've done. Even though you're be most known for KETOTARIAN for the rest of your life, this one has a lot of really good principles, and it is a 4-week plan based on your KETOTARIAN style. I want to go over, though, what the 4-week flexible fasting plan is, because I think this will be really interesting for people. So would you mind going over the different weeks? Why you do, like, week 1 is reset. What's the point of that?
Yeah. So the protocol in the book is born, again, out of me consulting patients online and really seeing just different tools and knowing the research around it, and obviously co-hosting Keto Talk for 3 years. We heard just about every question under the sun out there, both on a podcast level, but at a clinical level too. So I really wanted to hone it in as a writer, not just a clinician. I know as a writer, I'm not there to clinically monitor them in the same way. So you have to have it translated in a way that the person can do it on their own and they're not necessarily a patient. So the analogy that I use in the book is this proverbial yoga class for your metabolism. Is when someone's metabolically inflexible, it's like someone being on a musculoskeletal side being inflexible. So that they go to yoga and they've never done yoga before, their hamstrings are tight, their core is weak, they're going to go to yoga, and yoga is going to be the most unnatural, probably restrictive, miserable experience they've ever done in their life. And they could complain and they could say, yoga's not for me, yoga's for somebody else.
Namaste in bed.
It's not yoga's fault, it's your inflexibility.
Right.
And the reality is, and I have the tightest hamstrings under the sun, so I'm speaking to myself here. But the reality is you have to gain flexibility to get good at yoga. You have to gain and learn the art of yoga to gain flexibility, but also on the mindfulness side of it, yoga is a mindfulness practice and a meditation. So you actually learn the practice of yoga and the art of yoga as you gain not just physical flexibility, but a rootedness in your body and more of a mindful awareness. The same principle applies to intuitive fasting. So I want people to start off with that sort of beginner yoga class in the form of that time compressed feeding of 12-12, which in the fasting world is not very sexy. But in the average person of getting used to metabolic flexibility, pairing a clean ketogenic diet like KETOTARIAN is with sort of a Mediterranean, plant-forward, ketogenic way of eating, 12-12 plus a KETOTARIAN approach starts to gain that metabolic flexibility, starts to get that log in the fire of being fat adapted, leaning into it gently. But it's not pushing them too fast too soon, which many people, if they go to that advanced yoga class and never done yoga in their life, that's not going to be good. You could, you would be miserable. So what I'm doing.
The first time I did a Pilates class, only doing yoga before that, I went to a Pilates class because I heard it was like yoga.
Oh, hard.
It's murder.
Were you on the reformer or like on the ground? Were you on the reformer machine with like the?
I'm trying to remember. No, it was one of those like really sped up kind of Pilates ground. What? But it was like it was yoga, but I actually had to like work because yoga usually is like mindfulness and
so hour or vinyasa. Yeah.
So
tough. It's tough. So then what I'm doing with the protocol is we're starting there and then doing these vacillating, ebbing and flowing, expanding and contracting, eating and fasting windows. So think of it, expanding and contracting with eating and fasting windows starts to, like that yoga class, gain flexibility on a metabolic level. You could become less of just a sugar burner, but then become more of a fat and a sugar burner. That's what metabolic flexibility is. That starts to lower that inflammation, all the benefits of ketosis. Because that's, I mean, ketogenic diet in many ways is fasting mimicking. So I'm pairing a clean ketogenic diet that is cyclical ketogenic diet with intermittent fasting windows to gain metabolic flexibility, which is that fertile foundation for authentic mindful eating and intuitive fasting. So fasting will not be intuitive when you first start. That's the point of the book. So when people see that, and it was a trigger word for some people that are addicted to being triggered, but that's a different conversation. But the reality is that once you gain metabolic flexibility, fasting and eating will be more mindful. That's just the heart of anybody in the ketogenic world that's been at this for a long time will tell you that it's the case for them. As they gain metabolic flexibility, they have a deep awareness and discernment on what their body loves and what their body doesn't love. And I want that same food peace and freedom for everybody. And this is one tool to get there.
So just so I'm clear, in that first week, you're advocating a 12-hour fast and a 12-hour feeding window, and the feeding window is KETOTARIAN. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Wow.
You're allowing a couple of hours.
Yeah.
You eat dinner before you're fasting through the night until you break the fast at breakfast.
So that's wonderful, because people are already kind of doing that anyway, because unless you just sleep like crap, you're going to get at least 7 or 8 hours of sleep. So that's most of the fasting window there that first week. And I love it too, because you're applying the ketogenic principles. And we know it can take a little while to get keto adapted. But for most people, like you said, it's kind of mimicking the effects of fasting while feeding. So you're kind of giving their body a priming, so to speak, in that first week. Thus the word reset. That it's a great
reset. So I call that the 4 weeks are reset, recharge, renew, and rebalance. So they're based off of the science of what we're trying to do. So body reset was just mainly resetting, like getting a baseline here with the 12-12 with a clean ketogenic diet with no clean carb cycling at all. So it's a reset, but it's also, like I talk about in that chapter, it's also a gut reset, where the gut microbiome has this circadian rhythm. We have sort of these different colonies of bacteria that are higher in the morning, some are higher in the evening, and this sort of wave-like circadian rhythm of bacteria is disrupted many times because people are eating late and they are eating foods that are disruptive to the microbiome, and they're always snacking in between meals. So it's getting a disruption to the gut microbiome, which is 75% of the immune system.